Public sector accounting contains an inherent tension. How do you accurately apply commercial valuation to sprawling, non-commercial public goods? You cannot simply check the open market price for a massive, century-old aqueduct that supports a modern metropolis. Under the outgoing standard, IPSAS 17, standard setters essentially bypass the problem. The complexities of valuing these unique assets resulted in broad scope exclusions and deep ambiguities regarding how, or even if, they should be measured. Because of these exclusions, massive amounts of public service potential, ranging from national monuments to vast underground utility networks, were left completely off the balance sheet, or measured so inconsistently that the data lost its utility. This diagram outlines the structural solution, IPSAS 45. The standard introduces a unified framework built on 3 distinct pillars to capture property, plant, and equipment. The standard eliminates old exclusions for historical items and formalizes the characteristics of infrastructure networks, introducing a bifurcated measurement model driven strictly by an asset's primary objective. This standard update realigns accounting principles to better capture the economic reality and service capacity of public sector entities. Let's examine the first pillar of the new framework, heritage assets. IPSAS 45 entirely removes the IPSAS 17 scope exclusion for heritage assets. If a heritage item satisfies the baseline definition of property, plant, and equipment, it must now be recognized as an asset on the balance sheet, provided it meets the standard recognition criteria. A logic checklist outlines 3 heritage characteristics: use restrictions, irreplaceability, and indefinite useful lives. Strict legal restrictions place a hard mathematical constraint on calculating current value. And for assets with indefinite useful lives, entities are now required to conduct formal impairment reviews every single year. There is a fallback rule for extreme cases. If a heritage asset's value truly cannot be measured reliably, the entity is required to formally disclose it as an unrecognized heritage asset. The application guidance also details exactly how to recognize any subsequent expenditures made specifically to maintain or upgrade those unrecognized assets. By forcing these items into the financial statements, whether actively measured on the ledger or officially disclosed, the standard ensures a government's full cultural and historical footprint is accounted for. The framework's second pillar addresses infrastructure assets. Infrastructure assets are defined by their specific operational nature. They are complex networks or systems that function over highly extended useful lives. Historically, a disconnect existed between the physical maintenance managed by engineers and the financial valuations recorded by accountants. IPSAS 45 uses asset management plans as direct inputs for financial reporting. Controllers can map accounting depreciation curves from physical engineering data, monitor early impairment indicators before systemic failures occur, and determine significant parts of massive assets for precise component depreciation. The guidance also strictly separates the system from its environment, requiring the valuation of the infrastructure itself to be distinctly separated from the land situated under or over it. The standard also provides specific guidance on the accounting impacts and necessary valuation adjustments when these sprawling assets suffer from undermaintenance. By integrating engineering data, Pillar 2 allows the balance sheet to more closely track the physical condition of the network. This brings us to the final and most structurally complex pillar, measurement. The baseline rule remains straightforward. Initial measurement for assets acquired through non-exchange transactions is recorded at their deemed cost at the acquisition date. The measurement approach changes when an entity elects to use the current value model for subsequent measurement. Subsequent measurement is dictated by an asset's primary objective. Assets held for financial capacity use standard fair value, aligning with IPSAS 46. Assets held for operational capacity use current operational value, the exact amount required for the asset's remaining service potential at the measurement date. Unlike fair value, this operational measurement removes the need to invent hypothetical market participants or calculate exit prices for public assets that will never actually be sold. By separating measurement based entirely on intent, the standard resolves the friction of forcing commercial valuation models onto non-commercial public goods. When viewed together, we can see how the measurement logic seamlessly overlays and integrates with the newly recognized heritage and infrastructure assets. Practitioners now have a mathematically sound, intent-driven method to value irreplaceable historical artifacts and vast network assets. The compliance deadline is approaching. The effective date for IPSAS 45 is January 1, 2025. Early adoption is permitted, but strictly on the condition that the entity applies it concurrently with IPSAS 43 on leases and IPSAS 46 on measurement. Controllers must begin their preparatory work immediately. The first directive is to identify and assess previously unrecognized heritage assets to see if they meet the recognition criteria. The second directive is to establish interdepartmental workflows, building the bridges necessary to pull engineering asset management plans directly into the financial reporting structure. Mastering IPSAS 45 enables a government's financial reporting to more accurately represent its true service potential.